30% of Albertans have lost hope. That's about 1 million people. And I'm not going to demonize or marginalize a million of my fellow citizens when they've got legitimate grievances.
Maxime, I want to speak to you first because at the end of the day, the big question is Alberta separatism real? Is there a there? Personally, I would say it's more real in Alberta than it is in Quebec. I think it was 1981, 1995, 2 referendums for Quebec to separate. I would argue with demographic changes, and we talked about this in the first half, over the decades, I think separatism in Quebec is a pipe dream now. There are too many people in Quebec that do not want to separate themselves from the federal teat, if you will. So what do you say as a Quebecer that lived through those raucous years of separatism in terms of, is it indeed, am I right? Is it a pipe dream now for Quebec, but it might very well be real in Wild Rose country?
You have a point. Actually, I must say that it's unreal, speaking about separation for Carney and Poliev. They don't want to speak about that. They don't want to acknowledge that, you know, there's big concerns in Alberta. We have a centralized federal government that is not respecting the Constitution. So, yeah, I'm looking at what's happening in Alberta right now. Albertans may have a referendum this fall, and when you have 30% of the population, that's huge. But for me, you know, I'll be the only federalist leader of a believing in this country that will be with the yes side. And I said that publicly. I voted yes in 1995 in Quebec, not because I was a separatist, because I wanted the federal government to respect, to stop to interfere in provincial jurisdictions. And 30 years later, it is worse. And for Albertan, you know, look, you have the equalization formula against you. You have, you know, all these national programs that you're paying, and other province like daycare, pharmacare, and dental care. It's under provincial exclusive jurisdictions, and the federal government is interfering there. You cannot build pipeline in this country. So they have a real reason. But for why I will support the yes side, because we need a constitutional crisis to be sure that, you know, these establishment political parties will take Alberta seriously and not for granted. And now they are not, because if Albertans vote yes, they will have 3 options. First, to sit at the table with the federal government and have a new agreement, and that's my first choice, a new agreement in line with the Constitution that we signed in 1867. And if it's good for Alberta, it will be good for Quebec and every province. And if they're not able to have that deal, they will be independent, and they will have the choice to be the 51st state. But, you know, I understand that some separatists in Alberta went to Washington. Actually, in 1981, like you said, under René Lévesque, and in 1995 with Jacques Parizeau, they did go to Paris, they did go to Washington to have the support of these 2 countries. Why? Because if you want to be a real independent country, you need to have international recognition. And these people who went to Washington, that's their independentists. And they want to be sure that Washington will say, yes, you're an independent country, and now we can negotiate with you. And look, we can offer you to be the 51st state or not. So that discussion about 51st state will be after an independent Alberta. Before that, they need to be independent, and they need to have the recognition of other countries. And about your point in Quebec, you are right. Right now in Quebec, we will have an election this October. The PQ, the Independentist Party, is in advance in the polls. I believe that the PQ will win. And the leader of the PQ said, we will have a referendum in the first mandate of a PQ government, maybe in 2028, 2029, I don't know. But actually right now, the fact that with mass immigration, we have a lot of people who came here and, you know, they don't share the same point of view of other Quebecers about the separation. And so that would be more difficult for Quebec, I believe so, the third time. But for Alberta, you know, I'll be pleased this fall to be in Alberta and to tell them, if you want a real change, vote yes. The more support you have, the more bargaining power you will have.
And Max, to your point about Quebec delegations going to France during the separatist debates, I also remember, I think it might have been in the late 60s on the file of so-called foreign interference, Charles de Gaulle making that infamous speech, Viva Quebec Libre. That seems to get a pass, whereas BC Premier Eby calls Alberta separatists guilty of treason. But Drea, what say you, here's where I stand, whether it's the people of Quebec or the people of Alberta, if you have a fair and square referendum and you get 50% plus one and they say, we're out of here, I will respect their wishes. For one thing, for a person like me living in the Toronto area, how does this adversely affect my life? Well, as a matter of fact, if Quebec leaves, might improve my life with all the transfer payments we no longer have to pay. Although, always be aware of the bogeyman called sovereignty association. That means we want to be a separate country, but we want our fingers still in the till. Thank you very much. But Drea, for you as a British Columbian, would you be upset if the will of the people in any province was that we no longer want to be part of this dominion?
Well, sitting here in the Minnesota of Canada, I was also born in Alberta, so I'm kind of like one foot in both provinces, kind of like, well, let's see how this plays out. Might work out good for me either way. But I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're looking at Alberta to see what could happen. What is the potential? What is going to be on the table if this actually happens? And I know Rebel News has done a good job, our colleagues in Alberta, specifically at our independencereports.com, to show that this is a real thing. There are a lot of people considering this. So I wouldn't entirely underestimate it. As far as whether or not I respect or you know, I just feel like it's not even my place. I don't live there, haven't lived there since I was a child. And, you know, there's a lot on the line for Alberta. So again, I'm just watching to see what's happened. And that's the stance I would take.
And Max, let's get to the political element of separation. I totally get why the Liberals fought so vociferously against Quebec separation. Why do you want to lose such a huge part of your base? But on the flip side, if I'm the Carney Liberals, if Alberta wants to go, see you, because I think Alberta out of the Dominion would make it almost impossible in the future for the Conservatives to ever have a majority government. What say you?
Yeah, but if Alberta is leaving, that will give another, you know, push for the Quebec independence. That will, the PQ, you know, and the fact that that referendum will be, I believe so, if it happened, will be just before the PQ election. So that will help the PQ. They will say, you know, look, Alberta did it. It's easy. It's not the end of the world. Let's have a decision here in Quebec. And so for Carney, if he doesn't have Alberta and Quebec, he doesn't have a job anymore.
But I would go back to my original point, Max. I think because of the demographic changes in the last almost 40 years, I don't think a yes vote in Quebec is attainable anymore. I don't, and I guess I stand to be proven wrong.
No, I just want to add, what you're saying that there, you're not so wrong, because the Federalists in Quebec and some nationalists in Quebec are saying, why another referendum? We won't be able to win it. We don't need another referendum that we won't need. So that's an argument that people are speaking about here in Quebec. So you have a point about that, absolutely.